Hello, everyone. Welcome back to the Visibility Factor podcast. This is Sue Barber, your host. I am thrilled today to bring my guest, TJ Bennett, to you. If you were listening to TJ's podcast, you heard me on his show, and I loved it so much that I wanted him to come on mine and share with you all the things that he's doing as well. So welcome to the show, TJ. I'd love to have you introduce yourself to the audience.
Awesome. Thanks, Sue. Yeah, it was a blast having you on my show, and I'm excited to talk a bit about visibility and wherever else we go on leadership today. I'm an executive coach as well as a podcast host, and I've been coaching for a few years full time and longer than that, kind of part time while I was still working full time in my previous career. And my mission and the name of my podcast is Desuckify Work. So I'm all about making work lives more pleasant for people, not just because it's a good thing to do, but it's actually a good business.
So I know we talked a little bit about this when we met the other day, but I would love you to talk about how you came up with the name Desuckify, because everybody I've talked to that I told I was on your show, is like, what a cool name. Is that a real word? I mean, that was the first question. Is that a real word? So I think it'd be cool for you to talk about how you came up with that.
Sure. Yeah. I don't think it's a real word, but one of these days I am probably going to lobby the dictionary folks and see if I can get it included. I think I just have the habit in my own writing of mashing words together because I think it could sometimes create a fresh new meaning for people. And I was writing about the challenges with work, the challenges with leadership for a while. And that word just emerged one week. And I might have first been desuckification of work or something like that. And then I wrote, desuckify work, or work needs to be desuckified. And what I found was a lot of people who were reading it, that's what they were commenting on, kind of similar to your friends who were noting it. It just sort of struck me that there was something there. And in the background this whole time, I was thinking about starting a podcast, but I just wasn't sure, what is it? And that was when, this side of my brain and this side of my brain kind of came together like chocolate and Reese's or whatever back in the day. And it was like, that's the answer. My podcast is Desuckify Work. That's actually also my sort of brand mission. And it all just kind of came together. And I think it was deliberately trying to be a little cheeky, obviously, but it's emerged, I think, from just spending a lot of time working and realizing we make it really hard on ourselves sometimes. And I think we don't have to. So my goal is to help people find ways to make it a little less painful, hopefully even joyful and fun and meaningful and all that good stuff, so we can do more cool stuff together.
I love that mission. So let's hear more about your background, what you did in corporate world and how that changed for you when you left.
So I spent about 25 years in the advertising industry. I started as a copywriter and worked my way up as a creative director, executive creative director at a number of ad agencies. And I loved that career. It was my sort of goal at the time was to find a quote unquote corporate career that didn't feel corporate, right? And that was it. And it was a place where you could, going back 25 plus years, you could dress a little more casually when most folks were not doing that. You could speak a little bit more freely. It didn't have that sort of sense of being in a box that a corporate environment can. And it was a chance to use some parts of my brain that I really liked to lean into, which for me were writing and problem solving. And that was basically the job. Was every week or so you'd get a new project, come up with a new campaign for a client, and you had to crack the code and figure out what that was. You had to write things. You had to partner with people. You had to collaborate with people. And the meanwhile, you're having fun doing it. That was my career for 25 plus years. And what I noticed as I rose up the ranks and had a chance to lead people was that I was really drawn to that side of it. It wasn't obvious to me that I would be, but once I got that chance to lead people, I realized I really liked coaching and mentoring people. I really cared about their careers, not just what they could do for us as a company, but just where are you going? What's next for you? And that started to shift my perspective on what I wanted to do. And so in the last few years of my career, I was fortunate to have a few people ask me to mentor and coach them. That gave me the courage to say, I think I want to do this full time. And so 3 years ago, I just ripped the Band-Aid off and said, I am quitting this job and I'm going to start coaching full time and I'm going to get trained and all that stuff. And people looked at me like I was a little nutty. and I even looked at me like I was a little nutty, to be honest. I was like, this is a little weird, but I knew it's what I wanted to do. And so that's what I've been doing. And the beauty is that the creativity that fueled me in my career is fueling me in my coaching career as well. It really gives me a chance to be creative in new and fun ways. And I'm loving that.
Love it. So I'm just curious from your perspective, where do you feel like the corporate environment has evolved? Was it purely pandemic that really was kind of the last straw, if you will? Or was it something else that's just been happening over time?
I think the pandemic accelerated things, but it felt like it was happening before that. And by it, I think, for me, what I noticed was even in advertising, a little bit of the fun was getting taken out of it. But I think the mood was getting a little tenser. It's interesting. I feel like somewhere along the line, and I don't want to call out things like corporate profits and blah, 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 because those are good things. But somewhere along the line, and it was maybe technology speeding things up. I think as things got faster, it just started to take away and eat up the room for some of the more thoughtful work that a lot of us who have worked in various corporate jobs really enjoyed. The strategy, the long-term thinking, the real time to collaborate and kind of sit and mull something over. It's not that we had all the time in the world, but we had just enough time for that kind of work. And I think economic factors, technology, et cetera, maybe started to shrink that a bit. And then the pandemic, it's interesting because obviously it had all of us now being at home. And I think there were various responses to that, some good, some bad. But it did, I think, maybe turn work even more transactional. It was I think at first by necessity, right? We just have to get stuff out the door and we can't worry about what's going to come tomorrow. We didn't really know what tomorrow was going to look like, right? So just get the stuff out the door. And I think maybe some of that's hung around. But I also think the pandemic on the flip side opened up the idea that work shouldn't just be work. I think people started paying a little more attention to what am I doing? Why am I doing it? I spend a lot of time working with people on finding their why, and that emerged a lot more during the pandemic. You had the quiet quitting thing, which was, I think, a lot of folks going, I don't understand what this is for anymore. And now I think we're sort of finding our way back maybe to a bit of a balance of, hey, I get that work needs to happen, but I still want it to have meaning. And now you throw AI in the mix and it's making it maybe uncomfortably unstable for people, but people are thinking about it. So I'm hopeful, but it's weird, I think is the simplest word to use.
Yeah, I just met with somebody who's very deep in the AI stuff last week, and in some ways a little frightening, I'm going to say, just
Okay.
because of the unknowns I think that people
Hmm.
have,
Yeah.
and where the people who are kind of in the pure AI space, it's moving so fast. Even he talked about just going to a conference 3 weeks ago, and he said, that's already obsolete. Like what we have learned is happening so quickly.
Yeah.
And the way that the workplace looks today will probably be very different from the
Hmm.
workplace we have all grown up and known. So I don't know. Do you have any perspective on what you're hearing or what you're seeing on that?
Yeah. I mean, I'm hearing a lot of the same stuff. I mean, I talk to people and they go literally last week, something changed and now everything feels like it changed. And I get that. I think that that's natural with new technology. And when you have new technology that is sort of able by the nature of itself to improve itself, it's sort of, speeding that up even more, which is going back, I think, to the same challenge that we were leaning into just a few minutes ago, which is the speed of things. It makes us uncomfortable sometimes. And are we taking the time? And I think people are questioning this to think more big picture. What is AI for? And I think you need to balance that. Some of this just needs to be play and experimentation with AI and see where it goes. But somewhere you need to have some minds painting a bigger picture, partly just to sort of guide the work towards purposes that are best, but also I think to create a little bit of a narrative for people to hang on to. Because that's what I think is happening is, okay, it's changing every week. I know it's the thing, but what? Like, what is it really? And with all that, and then you layer in the fact that it's going to steal all our jobs and then kind of annihilate us. Like, that's kind of scary. I think we need to do a better job of figuring out what we're trying to do with it and sharing that in a way that people can start to go, I want to be a part of that. Or no, I actually want to be a part of something different. And then maybe some folks tell a different story. And that, I don't know when that's going to emerge. I think it needs to, but all of us can maybe play a part in that and just, thinking about what do we want from AI? It's easy as a business owner to go, I want efficiencies and blah, blah, blah. And of course, but that, I don't think that can be it. I think there needs to be more of a, what in the world am I trying to accomplish as a company, as a person, as a species, whatever, that AI is serving? And I feel like we're maybe not asking or answering that frequently enough.
Yeah. I mean, I would love to see some kind of strategy because each company seems to be doing their own thing. And so everybody tries something, right? Experiment. And I use it and I love it. I mean, there's a
Hmm.
lot of great things about
Sure.
it, but I think it's the unknown of what is the real plan here. And that doesn't seem to be something that has been defined yet, at least at this point.
Not obviously. And you would think the heads of Google, OpenAI, whoever else is taking the reins here, NVIDIA, some others, that they would maybe be doing a better job. And maybe they are in their circles, like maybe at conferences or whatever within the AI space, maybe there is a sense of understanding. I don't know. But I don't think it's seeped out into the rest of us quite yet. So yeah, and maybe it's upon us. Maybe we need to do some searches for some videos that these folks and see if there's something we can kind of hang on to and
Yeah.
go, oh,
Give us
now I
something.
get it.
Yeah.
But I haven't noticed that so far. Yeah.
Yeah, I haven't either. And he didn't really give me any either. So it tells
Yeah.
me that there probably isn't.
Is
But I
it?
think
Yeah.
within their companies, probably there is, a plan for them specifically. But at some point, think about the internet as the internet was coming online, right?
Huh?
There was kind of governance and things like that as it went. Those things were being figured out at the same time. And this
Yeah.
seems like a very different model. And of
Mm.
course, the speed is much faster.
Yeah,
I'm
that's a
sure
good
that
point.
contributes.
Yeah. The internet's a good analogy in some ways. I think for me, when the internet came out, it was like, it seemed apparent to me what it could offer. Maybe because people were telling us, but I think it was also kind of like, I think I was craving what the internet, like, I was like, okay, if we could only have all of our information more accessible, that struck me as like really interesting. And then like, if we could communicate more easily, that struck me as really interesting. Where AI does so many things and is so disruptive at what it does, it's not easy to just look at it and go, I can picture 3 years from now, the world will be so great because AI did this. It might be, but it's not as apparent as what I think the internet felt like, at least to me.
Yeah. Yeah, there just at some point needs to be a roadmap we can all understand. I want to go back to a little bit about what you were talking about in terms of leadership and having the time and taking the opportunity to be more strategic. I think there's also a segue to that in terms of leading people. And I remember when I was in probably some of my earlier roles, people had more time, right? You could ask more questions, they had more time to mentor you. And that is definitely not the case now because things are moving so fast. I'm just curious, what do you think has happened to leaders because of this shift?
Mm, yeah, I mean, it's interesting. I've coached some folks who are sort of emerging leaders, and they're on the younger side, and I can see what you're talking about. They're feeling that like sense that there should be more room for them to lead thoughtfully, right? But what it feels more like is very much tactical leadership. It's, okay, I want to help get this project out the door. And what happens, I think, for a lot of younger leaders in particular is, well, that looks a lot like micromanagement, right? That looks a little bit like, let me just take the thing and do it for you or tell you what to do, because they haven't had the time to nurture those kind of, I don't know, I think of it like muscles. There's the fast twitch and the slow twitch muscles. Those slower twitch muscles have not had a chance to be worked effectively. And you're just constantly in the fix it and get it out, fix it and get it out. And so you can see where that goes long term is, well, then the next group of people are going to think that's what leadership looks like. And listen, we had some of that ourselves, and we all did that ourselves to some degree, but we did have more moments to reflect. And there were certain projects that you would get to work on where it was like, this one we can sink our teeth into. There's a little longer horizon on it, and we can explore a little more. Self-serving or not, I do think coaching can help, because what I notice is people are grateful to just talk about it. And so wherever you can just talk about it and work out some of your thoughts on that, because I think some of it's just that it's in your head and you don't know how to sort of problem solve quickly. And if you just have a little bit of time to talk it through with somebody else, you can go, I could show up this way. And that's something. I also think this is maybe dangerous, but like occasionally pushing back and going like, why? Why are we going so fast on this thing? Like, I think it becomes a default mode because we can, right? And I know when I was working, like there were just times it's like, why is the deadline Tuesday? Because the client asked for it. But do they need it Tuesday? I don't know. Okay. Well, again, like, great, we're trying to make the client happy and all that, but at some point, there can be judgment and discernment, which is, I think that's a skill that doesn't always get cultivated, particularly when there's so much speed going on. We don't have time to think above the task. And I think even if you just spend 15 minutes a day allowing yourself to think above the tasks on your desk and just try to kind of put a little more strategic, to use your word, like let's have some strategy, let's think strategically. I think it gives you a chance at noticing some things that then give you a chance at showing up differently and maybe help you realize, ooh, I might be able to have a quick conversation with this person that allows them to find their way to a solution, and I don't have to tell them what to do. But it's hard. I get it. I mean, you could spend all day in meetings and then you're just trying to catch up on emails for the next few hours. I mean, that's what a day looks like for a lot of leaders. But I think you have to be willing to, one, prioritize that time, and then two, make some waves once in a while. Be okay going, nope, this doesn't make sense.
Yeah. I just had this happen a couple weeks ago with a client, and I used the word disrupt with her because her boss wasn't solving the problem in the best way
Yeah.
and was roping in more people and spending days on something that wasn't actually moving the needle in the right direction. And so when she shared it with me, I said, what would happen if you just asked the question, should we revisit what it is we're trying to accomplish here? Because I think we've lost sight of the goal. We've moved so many places now, and I'm not sure we're
Yeah.
going to get to the goal. But what happened was so cool. What happened is she asked the question, and everybody then came to the realization, of course, yes, we're not even focused on what we originally planned. But second, I said to her, get yourself in the room to have the conversation with the senior leadership team, because this is a golden opportunity. Clearly, your manager's not sure what to do and you have the plan. So let's get you in the room. And so she was able to do that in 3 different meetings. So, I mean, it just elevated her visibility in such a big way. So I think these moments of being able to challenge, disrupt when necessary, are things that I would love for them to grow their muscles in, right? And be comfortable. But I think where you and I have been allows us to know that you can do it as long as you do it in the right way. And it's okay, right? I think they don't know what normal is, I'll say,
Yeah.
because they've never experienced another way.
Yeah. I mean, and you think back to like a lot of younger folks, or, early chunk of their career was COVID. So it was like weird to begin with, So I think we can give a little slack there, and we can also, more senior leaders making it known that we're going to be moving fast and we're going to be doing stuff. But I am paying you to at least occasionally raise your hand and go, what about that? And give people the permission, because, maybe we didn't think we needed to ask for permission back in the day. And maybe that's just because there was more time or whatever. But I think it doesn't take much as a VP or above to just talk to your people and go, I need you to, I need you to speak up, and then hold them accountable to it. But some people just need the one signal or the occasional signal that says, it's okay to challenge me. right? And that's hard to do, right? Because it's not always fun to be challenged. You spent 3 days going down a rabbit hole thinking you're like doing the thing. And then somebody says, oh, you're not doing the thing at all. Like, oh, I feel kind of stupid, but like, it's my job to be okay with feeling stupid once in a while and then come back from it and go, great, thank you.
Yeah, it was just interesting to me to see that example kind of happen in real time. And
Hmm.
but let's go into insecure leadership while we're here, since
Okay.
that is an example of that. Clearly, they have the title, and I think people assume that if that person tells me what to do, I should just do it if they're not, strong enough to push back. So, do you see that happening a lot? And when you do, what is something you do to coach someone through that?
I definitely see it. I mean, I think this is maybe true for every generation coming up into the workforce that you tend to look at the folks above you and think they've kind of got it all figured out. And therefore I should just follow their lead, right? Some of us maybe have a temperament that didn't always accept that. I know I did. I was annoying at times. I am the person who likes to ask why, but I get that that's not there for everyone. And I think there's two things that can be helpful for people. One, simply becoming aware that every single person in your company has some amounts of insecurity and isn't always sure of what they're doing. And they're finding their way the best way they can as human beings, as we're all trying to do. And just to sort of strip away the sort of superhero veneer that can show up there. And I think that immediately can open up the way you relate to somebody, right? If you stop seeing them as this person up there and just it's another person. Yeah, they may know some things that you don't yet, but you probably know things that they don't know as well. And I think that that can be eye-opening as well too, is for people to realize that, at least if you're a reasonably mature, emotionally intelligent leader, and you're in a position up the ranks, you're actually looking to learn from the people who are working for you. You're excited to learn from them, especially with technology emerging and all that. You're really excited to have somebody who gets it in a way that you don't. So helping people to see just how much they have that they don't realize. And then I think it comes down to realizing that that's actually one of the best things you can do in your job is comes back to visibility, to be visible so that people can see where you can bring value, and helping people realize that that's part of your job description is to actually do that. But those are tough things because you can hear them, but then you have to kind of feel them by trying them and doing them. And there's always going to be the natural insecurity as a more junior leader of like, I don't want to stick my neck out too far, right? But if you go the other way and kind of do the ostrich thing or whatever and kind of just completely bury yourself, you're never going to get a chance to show your full value. And I think for most people, they would realize I don't want to spend my whole career that way.
And because they don't really know what the rules of engagement
Yeah.
are in
Hmm.
these situations. So their inclination is to sit back and hide a little bit and hope to God, something changes or
Yeah.
someone else steps up to the plate and says something. But that's
Mm.
where I think coaches can help, especially when you have experience,
Okay. Yeah.
that you can at least say, there's a way to do this. And how
Hmm.
can you be comfortable being uncomfortable and asking the question. And I've learned, I think over time, it's just being able to ask a challenging question in the best way is
Hmm.
really powerful. It
Yeah.
just stops the conversation from
Hmm.
going nowhere.
Yeah. Yeah. I would agree. And I think to your point about the rules of engagement, I think company cultures, sometimes make it feel like those are the rules of engagement, that you do just kind of sit passively and wait for, your boss or your boss's boss to lead the way. And so there is an active role in the senior leadership to just continue to nurture the culture of participation. And it's easy to forget that sometimes as a senior leader. You might be like, well, I said that. Yeah, that was like 8 months ago at a company, whatever, like all hands. There's the rule of whatever. You need to say something like 7 times before somebody, particularly if somebody works for you or underneath you in an organization, they really hear it. And we forget, when you're a senior leader, you're talking about this thing maybe all the time. And you might even be complaining about it. Why isn't my team speaking up? Blah, 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 blah. We need to da, 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 da. And then we told them that one time, it needs to be much more baked in to, you need to say it more often. And you also need to demonstrate it with how you show up for a meeting. You can show up for a meeting controlling the meeting as a senior leader, and that does not feel very inviting. You can sit back a little bit and listen a little more, which not always easy to do, but I think when you do, it makes a difference,
Well, and I think it shows your security as a leader too, that you're willing to listen. I mean, that's the reason people have teams, right? Because you cannot know it all. Even though when we first become managers, we think that's absolutely required.
Oh, yeah, 100%. And a lot of the people I coach think that, right? As younger people, it's like, oh my gosh, I need to know it all. It's like, no, but what you need to know is how to find a way to figure it out. That's what you're being paid for. But that's a very different mindset. And it's paralyzing if I have to know it all.
It's so much pressure, right?
Yeah. Yeah.
So much pressure. And then you're just trying to make sure that everything looks good and perfect. And it's exhausting. I mean, having done it way too many times in the beginning because I didn't know any better, it's exhausting. And you just don't know another way.
Yeah. And it actually, you think by trying to know it all, you'd actually improve your output. But I think it actually sort of strangles your output because you play it safe and you create the appearance of perfection by not taking any chances and painting a picture as opposed to stepping into the work with full curiosity and an openness to, I didn't really know that, but now I do, Yeah.
Don't be afraid to ask for help is the message here, everyone.
Yeah, please. Yeah. Which is hard. I get it. It's hard. You don't want to look like you don't get it. I understand it, but I think it's important. And I think everyone plays a role in creating that culture. Yeah.
So let's talk about your coaching and clients and your focus on helping them find their why.
Yeah.
What led you to that being something that was really important for you? And then what are some of the challenges they have in that space?
Yeah. I mean, I think for me, it always mattered to me that I cared about my work, that I felt connected to it. If we want to go way back, when I was coming out of college, I initially just took a sort of typical corporate job because I thought that's what you did. And I hated it. And I literally walked around all the time, like, what are we doing here? Like they would give me something to do. And I'm like, what's the point? And so that started me going like, well, what else is there? What else could I do? And then, I mean, for me personally, I had some health issues when I was younger. So I actually went into kidney failure when I was young and actually got a kidney transplant from my brother, which is amazing. But that kind of thing can shift your thinking. And I think in many ways, I mean, I sort of encountered a midlife crisis at 23 years old in many ways, because I was put in this position of really questioning, like, what am I doing? I just got this amazing gift and what am I going to do with it? And it wasn't like I felt like I had to go out there and do something, sort of philanthropic or something, although there was parts of that in me for sure. But it was just, why am I going to live each day and not feel connected to the 8+ hours every day I spend at work? And that's what ultimately led me to advertising, because I really started leaning into, I was writing a lot at the time and I was craving, like, how can I find a way to connect to some kind of work that will give me a chance to be creative, to write, to actually get paid for thinking and solving problems that made sense to me. And I was lucky that one of my cousins was already in the business and he was just sort of gave me some advice on how to get into it. And so for me, that guided my career. I was like, I'm fortunate to have a job that I really enjoy doing. I really love, I really connect to. And so by the time I emerged as a coach here over the last handful of years, that was just in my blood. Right. And then when I, was building my coaching practice, I knew I wanted to focus at least partially on this idea of connecting to your purpose, to your why or whatever. I was fortunate that I got connected with a group who does an assessment around that. And that really clicked for me. I was like, ooh. And even when I did the assessment, the results really connected for me. So like you can have a bunch of different whys, but mine was what they call make sense. It just means you like to solve problems. You like to take stuff and figure it out. And I was like, oh yeah, that's me. That's been me for my whole life, asking why all the time. And I thought, okay, I want to work with people who are feeling something of what I've felt over the years for whatever reason. It obviously doesn't have to be through some kind of health challenge, although it can be. It shows up that way for people. But often it just shows up for people. COVID obviously sparked it a lot for some folks. It can just show up for some moment in your life. You look around and go, what am I doing? And that can be a more junior leader, and that could be the CEO of a company. That could be the founder of a company kind of going, what am I doing? Like they lose touch with the thing that connected you to it. So for me, it's just become really fun to help people figure out, okay, this is what drives me. This is what motivates me. And for some, that means I can continue to do that here. I just think about the way I'm doing my work differently. For others, it may spark them to think about maybe I should be doing something else. And I would argue whether if you're at a company, and I appreciate a sense of loyalty, but you're doing a better job for a company if you leave, if you're not really connected to it. If you're not really in it, I know for me, I don't want somebody working for me who's not in it. So I think giving people that opportunity to see what's in front of them and then go, yep, that's the path for me. I think wherever it leads is where it should lead. Yeah.
I mean, well, first of all, I didn't know about your kidney situation. Oh my gosh. I mean, that's just such a pivotal perspective changer right there, right? When that
Yeah.
happens to you, it changes everything about how you see your future, what you
Hmm.
think you would want to do. So I love that you chose the path that you did because I don't think people think about fun as an option. I really, it's been enlightening to me. A friend of mine wrote a book her book is called Heart Value, and it's about helping people recognize the importance of finding fun, something to really make your heart happy, make your life happy. And it's just not something I was ever taught. I shouldn't say that. One of my first jobs, I did have a ton of fun there. But after that, it was all very corporate-y, I'll say. So, I think people just don't even realize that's a possibility. But what I'm curious about is have you talked to someone who's maybe in an environment that is not the fun environment, but helped them create that for their team?
Yeah. Yeah. A few folks actually. Yeah. I think to your point, yeah, people don't see it, even if like, you had it at a point in your career, but that becomes a distant memory and you think, oh, that is obviously an outlier and that's not what work is really like. But yeah, I've worked with a few folks who I think, maybe you can't change the entire culture of your team, depending where you are. Obviously, if you're in the senior leadership, you might be able to at least start to shift it. But even just thinking about how you deal with your own team and creating an environment that is more open, more collaborative, more fun. And just like, I don't know, I just used to do stupid stuff when I was leading teams. Like I remember like my first day or first week at a job years ago, and I had moved across the country for this job. I bought these pens. They looked like they were little duck heads on like a yellow pen. And when you
Yeah.
hit the top, it would go quack, quack. And I just brought them in. I go like, let's, some duck pens, everybody. Whenever we're feeling the mood, we just quack and we just have fun. Like you just felt like this surge of joy when you'd be sitting down and all of a sudden you'd hear quack, quack. And it was just like, I mean, this was in advertising. So yeah, there was already some room for that maybe, but it was not, I don't think it was fully baked into the culture of this place quite that way. And that sort of set the tone for, okay, people can be a little more themselves and other people would do things or bring in things or share stories that were fun. And fun doesn't have to be constantly playing and laughing. Fun can just be, finding a way to work together that makes you feel in it, right? I mean, I used to see, some folks on my team, they were sort of had a little pod and I would see them kind of stand up and then the other person would stand up and they would talk to each other. And it just became how they worked. It was not heads down, stare at the screen, you know, message the person who's sitting right there, which is what happens a lot,
Yes.
right? It was much more like let's support each other, let's lean on each other, and that is fun in its own way, right? But sometimes you have to kind of grease the wheels a little bit with a bit of playfulness. And there's actually really interesting studies out there. I've had a few people on my show who do work in the play space, which is kind of this emerging space where they go and do workshops with corporate leaders. And there's science behind the fact that if you can help people connect to their sense of fun and play, you work better. So not only does it help you feel better about those 8, 9, 10, whatever hours you spend together, it unlocks all the P's, as I say, productivity and profit and performance and all that stuff. So again, it's good business and it's good for us as humans.
Yeah. I mean, you're spending so much time with people, to your
Yeah.
point. Let's try to enjoy it. Let's try to just enjoy ourselves at work. And I loved that job. Let's see, it was not my sales job, it was after that. And we had the best time every single day. We dressed up for Halloween. We put we filled my boss's office with balloons to the hilt. Like we couldn't even get into his office. It was so filled.
That's awesome.
But like it was just fun, little pranky kind of stuff that
Mm-hmm.
just you never knew what was going to happen and how it was going to be, but you always heard laughter. And we worked a ton of hours for sure, but I
Mm-hmm.
never forgot that. And I always tried to do some stuff where we could, right?
Yeah, I think that alone is enough reason to do it. And then the fact that it actually makes the work better. I mean, you think about like being at your desk and sort of trying to sort of force your way through work and feeling maybe a sense of fear around you and how that sort of what that does to your brain. And then kind of coming off of the endorphins of laughing and having fun and feeling really connected to the people that are you with. Of course, you're going to work better. I mean, it seems obvious once you really look at it, but I think when fear comes into ourselves, it becomes sort of contagious. We just spread it, not even necessarily on purpose.
Yeah.
So again, if we could take 5 minutes to step back from everything once in a while, you open the door to that stuff more, I think.
Yeah. And I love that you're saying you don't have to take an hour, just 5 minutes, right? Take a walk outside, do something. I think just to change the pattern of where you are. And there was different spaces within our headquarters, different parts of the organization. I could go sit in their space and it was much more quiet, right? Nobody was coming up and asking me questions because that's
Yeah.
usually your biggest disruptor all the time. But,
Yeah.
I could go over there and just kind of think,
Yeah.
just put my headphones in. And I think that's what we are missing is that there's so much doing and not enough thinking that we might be making bad decisions. We might be making, I don't know, we're not helping people grow and develop in the best ways because we're not even spending time thinking about our team because
Yeah.
there's just too much going on.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I agree with that. And it's hard to see it if you're not at least taking those little breaks to give yourself the view,
Mhm.
right? Which I get it. Weeks can go by sometimes at work before you finally go, what I do? Like what have I been doing? So it is hard and it does require some deliberate practice to create those moments for yourself. But I think it's worth it. I mean, I just think, at every scale, like within a small team, within a bigger organization, within an industry, within humanity, like more thinking, not just constant doing is probably a good recipe for us to have more success in whatever realm that means. Yeah.
Yeah. That's a total mic drop moment there, right there. Let's just listen to TJ. Go take some time to think, people. It will change your life.
I really think it will. Yeah.
Yeah, agree.
Yeah.
Anything I didn't ask you about that you wanted to share?
Well, one thing I wanted to come back to on visibility, and I don't know if this is as true in all industries, but in the advertising world, and we had talked about this a little bit last time we met, this idea that my work should speak for itself, right? That, you know, I've spent a lot of time in it. I've put it out there. You've seen it, like therefore I shouldn't have to expend any effort making myself more visible, helping people see the contribution I'm bringing. And I get it. I probably had that feeling at some point, but it also became obvious to me at some point that that wasn't enough because everyone around you is doing cool stuff, right? And it's not like you're trying to say my stuff is cooler. It's just here's the way I'm solving problems for you. And here's what I thought about. And here's why I'm doing what I'm doing. And here's where I think there's even more opportunity. Having that conversation with your boss or whoever else, just it allows them to see you more fully. It allows them to at least have the chance to appreciate what you're doing. But I think even more important, it gives you the chance to bring more because that's ultimately what's going to get you promoted and growing in your career and in whatever way you want to is when people realize and see that you have more to give, right? And so that would be my advice to anybody in any industry, but particularly in advertising and other creative spaces is just for whatever ick factor there is for you around like, I don't want to show, am I bragging? Am I being political? Blah, blah, blah. Like the reality is as human beings, we see ourselves like all the time. And we maybe then think people must see us and they just don't. And so just recognize that and then make it easier for people to see you. And that's, if you think of it that way, I think it can take a little bit of that stink off of it for you. And you can just kind of go, oh, okay, I'm just giving people a better chance to get to know me and what I can bring to the table. And that seems like a good thing.
Yeah, it's a great perspective. I think there's just so much doing again and not recognizing that, I don't know, I grew up in a strong work ethic too. And if I work really hard, people are going to notice. And, that's the core message of the book is that's not enough. And I really believe that to my core that that's all I needed to do. And I'll kill myself to work a million hours to make it happen, which it literally almost happens. I think that's the part that isn't taught, right? It isn't something that people know. And it is interesting to see how people figure that out. So until my book, came out, a lot of people were like, I had no idea that this was a thing.
Yeah.
So I know that that's true in all industries, and it's just not something that people are taught. So, yeah.
Yeah.
We need more people.
I'm glad that you're putting that message out there because even talking with you both today and on my show, it reminded me of some things and brought it more to the foreground for me. So that's been really helpful. And it helps me with my own coaching work just to have that a little more present. So if I notice it in somebody, I'm more quick to give them that reflection and give them a chance to see it for themselves.
Yeah. Well, I'm glad that helped.
Yeah, absolutely.
So one last question before we get into the quick tips. What is next for you?
I want to fully desuckify the world of work. That's what's next for me. It is a hefty goal, and I don't even necessarily pretend that I will fully achieve it. But for me, it's, I'm continuing to do the coaching, and I'm actually working with a new assessment that I'm really excited about called the Promotability Index, which speaks to a lot of what we've been talking about today, how to bring, maybe a little bit more emotional intelligence to our work and be more aware of all the facets of ourselves that we need to bring so that we can get the kind of growth that we want for ourselves and ultimately help others. So that's something I'm leaning into. Going to continue working with the why. I'll put it out there as something that's on my mind is that I do want to write a book, around, desuckifying and, I don't quite have the vision yet, but I'm hoping maybe by putting out there that this is something I want to do, it pushes me to dig in and find the vision. And honestly, I also invite people like if you've listened to this or if you listen to my show at all and you think you should be talking about this more, please tell me because I want to put something out there that helps people. So it's not just about what I think; it's about what people want and need more of in their lives.
Well, I think they're telling you Desuckify Work is a big topic that they want to hear more about, is what I feel like. And I have some people I know that could help you with writing a book at any time in the future that you
Awesome.
want. So,
Yeah, I appreciate
yeah.
that.
And I would just tell you, I shared with you off our podcast the other time, like you're a really great host. You're very thoughtful. And I think you have a lot of great messaging that people need to hear. And so I think there's definitely an opportunity for you to take that and scale it in a bigger way because you do have a big breakthrough goal there that you're trying to make happen. And a book isn't the end all be all solve for that, but it's another path, right, for people to learn about it and find a way to desuckify their own work. Maybe could be a cool program you implement at companies, right?
Yeah. No, I mean,
Maybe we
that
could
would,
do that together. Well, you
yeah,
desuckify, I'll do the visibility, and then we'll just kind of merge them together and
I love it.
magic happen.
We could do it. I mean, I am game for anything. I mean, that's actually an interesting concept to just like working together in general. I think one of the weird things about coaching is that it's often like very solo work. And I love the concept of working and partnering with other people in the same field and bringing our various bits of expertise into it, because no one of us is covering everything that's needed. Sometimes when you do stuff together, it gives it a little more juice. And so I'm always game for that.
All right, well, we'll talk about that off air, everyone.
Yeah.
Okay,
Awesome.
so we're going to transition to what I call the Rise Up and Be Visible quick tips. These are 4 questions I ask every guest. So the first one is, what do you think visibility is and why?
Well, I think there's 2 things, and I was thinking about it. I think visibility is, first of all, I think it's underappreciated. Coming back to that, I think we dismiss it too easily. But I think we touched on this a little bit earlier, but it is a part of your job, right? And it is the part of your job that allows people to fully see you, to understand what you can bring to the table, and then invite you to make bigger contributions to the team, to the organization, to the industry, to whatever, right? So I think that's really it. Just it's this beautiful part of your job when you really think about it that allows people to get to know you better so you can do more.
I love it. And almost reframing the bragging piece to kind of let that go, because I think that's why
Yeah,
people hesitate,
I
is
get
they
it. Yeah.
don't want to be seen that way.
Yeah.
What are you doing to be visible?
I think for me, the things that I tend to do reasonably well are putting myself out there on social media. So, I have my podcast and I share that on LinkedIn and Instagram and elsewhere every week. I do it. I've been doing it for 2 years now. I'm launched episode 99 today as we're speaking.
Gosh,
So, yeah, doing fine there. I do other content. I love to write and I love to just put out sort of, you know, I don't want to say provocative, but at least interesting questions to people and interesting ideas to people that get you to think about work a little bit differently. So I share that kind of content. I probably have some work to do on the face-to-face side. I think like to the point earlier, it can be a little bit isolating when you're working for yourself sometimes, and getting better at getting out there and meeting people and doing more coffees and lunches and virtual stuff, and even maybe some more speaking. I've done a little bit of that, but I think those are opportunities where I think I could probably grow on the visibility.
and I think you would do a great job, so they definitely need to hear from you.
Awesome. I appreciate that.
Of course. What is the best leadership or career advice you've received?
Yeah, this was an interesting one. I had to dig on this one a little, but the thing that comes back to me is this idea of protecting your team. And you can go to an extreme with that, which is not healthy, but basically giving your team room to explore, create, and make mistakes. And I think with so many demands on our time now, that becomes harder and harder. But I think of it almost like, to use a sports analogy, like an offensive lineman blocking, protecting the quarterback so that they have some room to be creative and think about the play they're trying to make. That often is the biggest job. The extreme of that can be that you coddle your team and you protect them so much that they actually don't get to sort of stick their necks out and take some risks. But that's not obviously what I'm saying. I want you to just try to create space for your team. I always appreciated that when I received that. And I think when I was at my best as a leader, I was doing that for my team.
Making mistakes is how you learn. And I learned the most from them to not repeat them and to teach others how to navigate those
Yeah.
situations when they happen.
hmm
So, yeah, I'm grateful for all of those situations. At the time, I didn't enjoy, but I can appreciate so much more now.
Exactly. Yeah, exactly.
Oh, okay. And what book would you recommend to the audience?
So I have 2. Like I couldn't narrow it down to one. One is called The Life Brief by a woman named Bonnie Wan. And she is going to be a future guest on my podcast. And I got to speak with her about a month or 2 ago. And basically, she's taking this idea of a brief in advertising, what would be called the creative brief, is the sort of launching point for whatever problem you're trying to solve. And she sort of distilled that into a way of thinking about your life, whether that's work or personal stuff, whatever, and creating a brief for solving particular challenges in your life. Her own examples include like challenges with her marriage, and then challenges at work and all that stuff. And I really love that. I've tried to do some similar things, bringing some of my advertising work into the way I do stuff, but she really distilled it beautifully. So that book is fantastic. And then there's another book by a former guest on my podcast called The Quest. The subtitle is The Definitive Guide to Finding Belonging, and it's by a guy named Don Berger, but it's spelled Dan. And it just goes really deeply, but not in a hard to access way, around just how important belonging is. And for Don, his story was one of, being adopted when he was younger and feeling a sense of not belonging. And then he moved from Israel to the US when he was a kid and like felt that sense of not belonging. So it was like obviously a very personal story for him. And I think that comes through in the book in terms of, but he gives you very accessible ways to ultimately figure out how you can feel a sense of belonging. And I think that when you bring that into the workplace, that is that same feeling of people really getting a chance to see you like fully and recognize all that you can bring. When you feel like you are part of something and you belong to something, that brings that out of us. And he did a really good job with that book. So The Life Brief and The Quest are the two books.
Well, I love both of those. I haven't heard of either of those.
Yeah. Yeah.
How can people find you if they want to learn more about you and what you do?
Well, there's a few ways. I'm definitely on LinkedIn always, so you can find me. I think if you looked up just TJ Bennett coach, you'd probably find me. Or if you looked up Desuckify Work, you'd find me. I'm also on there. My company name is The Pudding Factory, and I have a company page as well, but my personal page is probably better in general. You can find me at thepuddingfactory.net. That's my company website. And then I have a Substack blog where I also host my podcast. I think if you just looked up Desuckify Work on Substack, you would find me there as well. I'm on Instagram too, at Desuckify Work. I share a decent amount there too.
Well, I will have all the links in the notes for everybody. Okay, I have to ask, how did you come up with your company name?
Oh, that's a fun story. So it all comes back to my cats, which if you know me at all, like my cats are like a big part of my life. And we had a cat named Marvin who was with us for a good long while. And this was when we lived in California. And if you have cats, maybe you get this, but we talk to our cats and we also sort of talk for our cats. So meaning when I say something to my cat, I then say what they're saying back to me. And so Marvin came down the stairs in our home one day and just kind of trotting and had this very like content look, like he was, tail up and feeling good. And I was like, I hadn't seen him all day. And I was like, where you been all day, buddy? And for whatever reason, the words that came out of my mouth were, I was at the pudding factory working all day. It's really fun. I don't know why that came into my head, but that's what came into my head. And so that happened. And that just became this ongoing joke between me, my wife, and our cat Marvin, where we would just kind of go, hey, how was the pudding factory today? And so when it came time for me to start my own company, I was like, I think the pudding factory is the name of my company. And then it sort of evolved that pudding actually means, like, I've been playing with this idea that pudding is kind of the equivalent of like your secret sauce as a person, your special sauce as a person, the stuff that makes you like your superpower or whatever. So I've been working that kind of messaging into it as well, because I think that's a big part of what I'm always trying to focus on, is like finding the thing that makes you awesome. That's the thing we want to bring out more often.
I love that story so much. Is Marvin still with you?
He is not, unfortunately. He was with us for 16 amazing years. And he is, if you go to my website, you'll see him. There is a picture of me shrunk down to miniature size, standing on a bed, high-fiving a cat. And it is our cat, Marvin. He just happened to be sitting with his paw up one time. And I got the picture and I was like, I'm going to put myself in there high-fiving him.
I love it. That's amazing. Oh my gosh.
Yeah.
Well,
Marvin was awesome.
I love this conversation so much. I think we went to a lot of different places. I hope everyone will take away some nuggets from you that you shared, because there were a lot of good ones. And please follow his podcast. You'll hear a lot of great conversations Like I said, I was really thrilled to be on there, and I felt like we had such a great chat about so many things. And I know you
It
do
was
that
really
with all
fun.
of your guests. Thank you for being here. Thanks for all that you're doing in the world. And I know that what you're doing is very much needed. So keep it up.
I appreciate that, Sue. Thanks for having me on. This was
Of
a ton
course.
of fun.
Excellent. Okay. Thanks, everybody, for joining today on the Visibility Factor podcast. And we'll catch you on the next one.